Morning, friends. Morning. So, not too long ago, a 24-year-old fashion blogger, Scarlett Dixon, posted a picture of herself having breakfast. Underneath the photo, she typed the following caption: "The best of days start with a smile and positive thoughts, and pancakes, and strawberries, and bottomless tea. My morning routine is now live on YouTube. And while I don't show you my real bed here, trust me, it's not pretty." Haha, she's so human. "I do give a little insight into how I start my day in a positive thought. So head over to my stories for a swipe up link and let me know what you think." This is our world now. A world where we actually think other people are fascinated by the boring details of our morning routine. A world where young people stage photos of an obviously fake reality in order to impress people they don't even know. A world where we relentlessly promote the lie of a perfect life. At the center of all this nonsense is a childish obsession with ourselves. Phrases that just a generation or two were completely unheard of, like self-esteem and self-worth and self-improvement and self-love, have in our generation taken on an almost sacred quality. And yet for all of this improving, loving esteem that we're giving to ourselves, the irony is we've never been more miserable or depressed. The more everything is about us, the happier, the less happy we seem to be. In the Bible, we learn the opposite way. We learn that in life, nothing should be about us. We learn that the way to happiness is to care more about other people and be more interested in other people than we are about ourselves. So if you're a self-obsessed narcissist, you've picked the wrong day to come to church. Just saying, all of you. Right, so we're digging through the book of Philippians in the New Testament. We've gotten as far as chapter 2, which, as you can see, begins with 4 conditional statements, each of which start with if. Paul says, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ. When Paul uses the word encouragement there, what he means is, if at any point in your dealings with me, you've ever felt courage, if you've ever been scared in life, if you've ever been going through something in life, if you've ever been unsure in life, and somehow in your dealings with me, you've gotten the courage and the guts necessary to keep going and to keep plodding on. That's what he means. Then he says, if you have any comfort from his love. Again, when he uses the word comfort there, he's talking about the comfort that he, as the Bible teacher, has given to the church. He's saying, guys, think back over the rough patches you've gone through in recent years. He's saying, if at any point in your darker days, if at any point when you've been just going through porridge uphill and it's been a struggle, if at any point you've ever gotten any comfort, any chutzpah to just keep going one day longer, if you've ever been helped in any way, if that is true. And then he says, if you have any fellowship with the Spirit. The word fellowship in the New Testament doesn't mean let's get together and have coffee. It is the quintessential church word. It describes how we, from a different set of circumstances and backgrounds and worldviews, have been brought together to a common belief that somehow the death and the burial and the resurrection of Jesus was for people like us. If that is in any way true for you. And then he says, if you've got any, if you have any sense of tenderness and compassion, both of those words in the first century would have been used by a gastroenterologist or someone like that. They literally mean the guts. He's saying here, if you've been brought to a place in life where you believe that somehow God in heaven feels for you in his guts. That somehow the stuff you go through, the horrible, dark, nasty, scary, messy stuff, that somehow the stuff you go through here on earth affects God in heaven emotionally. If you somehow believe that that is true. Okay, so you've got verse 1 so far. If at any point in your dealings with me, you've been given courage in your faith. If at any point in your dealings with me, you've been given comfort in hard times. If somehow you've come to believe that the life and the death and the burial and the resurrection of Jesus were for you, if somehow you believe that God feels for you, if any of that resonates with you at all, then, next sentence, make my joy complete by being like-minded. So there's the J word again. There he is again, talking about happiness. And just to remind you, when he writes this sentence about how happy he is, where is he and what is he? He's broke, flat broke. He's in jail. He's been betrayed by some of his closest friends. And he's facing the prospect of a premature and rather gruesome death. All of that is true. But what is also true, it seems, is that he has a level of happiness in life that his unhappy circumstances cannot touch. I like that. My circumstances, nasty. But the nastiness that surrounds me, that I face, the soup I swim in every day, it touches my life. Of course it does. But there's bits of my life it cannot touch. And it cannot touch my joy. It cannot steal that deep, deep optimism that drives me forward every single day. That stuff is untouchable. Notice more. Notice specifically. He seems to be genuinely happy with how the church in Philippi are doing. Notice the subtlety of that. His personal circumstances are absolutely unhappy. But he is nevertheless feeling happy because of how other people are doing. Now, when the Bible talks to the early church, as it does here, and says that they should be like-minded, it doesn't mean that they should agree on everything all of the time. The fact is that different church groups in the ancient world felt just as differently about different things as we do in the 21st century. That's just a matter of fact. So notice that Paul does not apply this phrase, be like-minded, all agree on this one issue, to differences of opinion. Differences of opinion are an inevitable and wonderful aspect of life. Rather, he applies this specifically to how people should feel about one another. So look at how it flows. He says, you are all to be like-minded. That makes me happy. And how are we to be like-minded? On what particular issue would you have us all agree on? Read it. By having the same love. The same love as who? Jesus. And let's be Socratic. What was the nature of Jesus' love? What was the one thing that characterized Jesus' love? It was that it wasn't selfish. It was the opposite of self-worth, self-esteem, self-improvement. It was a love that by its very nature gave to other people. Jesus' worldview, he actually said it was that he had come not to be served but to serve. He had come not to get but to give. He had come for other people and never for himself. Jesus' understanding was that his whole life was for other people. It never occurred to me before, and I haven't written this down, but I guess Jesus and Italian grandmothers are a bit similar in this regard. Do you know the quintessential grandmother? Happy as long as you're happy. Okay as long as you're okay. As long as the kids are fine and the grandkids are fine, I'm fine. That's all I need from life, is to know that you're okay. This is Jesus' worldview. All I need from life is for you to be all right. And for you to have what you need. This is foundational New Testament teaching. We may have differences of opinion on all manner of things, but on this one thing there is to be no difference of opinion. There is to be no debate or discussion. We are to emulate the love of Jesus by being for other people. We are to demonstrate our Christianity by not being selfish. We are to demonstrate our faith by being happy through the happiness of others. By being okay when others are okay. The less you think of you, and the more you are for them, the happier you will make yourself. That seems to be the deal. So I like this so far. Paul is sitting in his jail cell in Rome. His left hand is chained to a wall. He's writing this with his right hand, and he's thinking happy thoughts. And he's thinking happy thoughts not because he's happy, he's not. He's happy because they're happy. He's thinking church in Philippi, Christians in Philippi, nice people, I like them, that makes me happy. You know, they're not like the church in Corinth where some people are shacked up with their stepmothers. That's good. And it's not like the church in Ephesus where the guys are going to the brothel on Saturday night. That's good. And they're not like the church in Galatia where people are altering the core fundamentals of Christianity. That's good. And they're not like the crazy left behind end of world wackos that I had to deal with in Thessalonica. So, that's good. These Christians in Philippi seem like pretty nice people. They're good lives, good beliefs. It makes me happy to think about how well they're doing. They're okay, I'm okay. So he's happy. But in his happiness, he is aware that in their good living and good believing, they are becoming arrogant. From what we know of early Christianity, the Christians in Philippi particularly were great. Good beliefs, good morals, they knew what was up, they knew right, they knew wrong, they lived good lives, and that's good. But the living of a good life can become the context for arrogance, for thinking, I'm better than you. There's a reason why I haven't endured the same hardships as you, and the reason is me. And for Paul, it doesn't matter how good or right your life is. Arrogance is never Christian. Nothing could be less Christian, actually. And so he says to them in verse 3, I want you to do nothing out of selfish ambition. When he uses the phrase selfish ambition there, he's thinking of people in the church who did have right beliefs and who did live right lives, and yet their rightness was always a way that they used to impress people. I guess it's always been an Instagram hashtag kind of world, hasn't it? Hashtag perfect Bible study again. Hashtag perfect family. Hashtag I'm so glad I'm better than you. Hashtag God and I are so close. Hashtag God talks to me all the time. You know the type, right? Their Bibles are bigger than yours. Paul would say to people like that, all right, good for you. Your life might be perfect, but your attitude is so wrong. What else? He says, have nothing to do with vain conceit. Interesting phrase. A person who was vainly conceited in the ancient world was a person who very confidently and very assertively spoke nonsense. Do you know people like this? For me, this phrase describes 21st century life to a T. Very articulately speaking rubbish. I met someone a few years ago from the Christian Flat Earth Society. They subscribe to a thing called the Christian Association of Geometric Astronomy. Sounds so cool. It's Christian and it's got sciencey words in there, so it must be right. So this person believed that the Bible teaches the world is flat. Now, I don't know too much about stuff, but I'm pretty sure it's round. I'm pretty sure that issue has been settled for centuries. But this person, very articulately, very seriously, very passionately believed the world was flat. And could you talk to this person about this? Oh, no. Could you speak sense to them? No. Let me read to you the creedal statement of the Christian Association of Geometric Astronomy. For real, Christian people, we maintain that the Bible teaches us of an earth that neither rotates daily, nor revolves yearly around the sun, that is at rest with respect to the throne of him who called it into existence, and hence is absolutely at rest in the universe. This is exactly the meaning of the phrase vain conceit in today's verse. Confidently, articulately talking rubbish. Let's go back to our breakfast photo. For me, all of social media falls into this category. Let's step back into this lassie's perfect morning. I want to walk into this photo. And I want to talk to her and the poor guy behind the camera. He's the guy I feel sorry for. And I want to say, guys, what are you doing? Like, seriously, what are you doing? A few questions just come to mind. Number one, those aren't pancakes, they're tortillas. Number two, I want to pop all those balloons. Number three, why do you have a bottle of Listerine by your bedside table? Do you have a spittoon down there somewhere? Like, what is there? Who keeps Listerine by their bedside table? Serial killers? What is this? Number four, what is wrong with you? That you think other people are interested in either your morning routine or your fake morning routine? What is broken inside you that you need perfect strangers, I can guarantee most of them don't like you, to approve of this fake thing? This fake, what is the matter with you? Paul is saying in these sentences, stop. Stop being so utterly fascinated with yourself. It's nonsense. You are not interesting at all. None of us are. Your views, your opinions, your little things, your little obsessions, the little dramas in your day, no one cares. None of it matters. Stop. It makes you ugly. Instead, he says, but there's a better way. Instead, he says, now read this sentence, this matters. This is super Christian. He says, in humility, consider others better than yourselves. Each of you, here's how you do the Christian thing. Each of you should not only look to your own interests, but also to the interests of others. I've taught you before that the word humility in this sentence is, for me, it is the quintessential Christian word. I mean, if we are to be anything else, we are to be humble. And I think I've taught you before that this word was, as far as I know, an invention of early Christianity. As far as I know, this word does not exist in pre-Christian literature. the apostles literally made it up. It is a combination of two separate Greek words, the word tapainos and the word phrosyne. The word tapainos is a word that in the first century was used to describe someone whose job involved name tags and hair nets. Are you with me? The kind of person who said, "Would you like fries with that?" all day long. To talk about someone in the first century who was tapainos was to talk about someone at the bottom, someone who was in a low-paid service industry, unenviable sort of job that involved mops, fries, buckets. Okay? The word phrosyne means to think of yourself. So the apostles are looking for a perfect word to describe Christian mentality, and they just mash these words together. Think of yourself as though you don't matter. Think of yourself as though you are at the bottom. Think of yourself as though no one cares about your dramas and your issues and what's up with your day. Think of yourself as being responsible to serve other people and give them what they need and take care of what's up with them. That exactly is the meaning of the Christian word humility. Think of yourself as though every hour of your life was for them. And to help us with this, Paul then gives us an example of what humility looks like. He says, I want your attitude, and life is all about attitude, to be the same as that of Christ Jesus. Literally, this sentence says in first century Greek, your way of thinking about yourself should be the same way that Jesus thought about himself. Let me say that again. Your way of thinking about yourself should be the same way that Jesus thought about himself. Then to illustrate the way Jesus thought about himself, he quotes a first century hymn. Probably, as far as I know, the first Christian hymn ever recorded. Here's Jesus, being in very nature God. Now the word nature in this sentence is a word he borrows from Greek philosophy. It means the shape and appearance and texture of a thing reflects the reality of the thing. That's a garbage explanation. So look at the orange, that's better. That orange looks like an orange. It feels like an orange. It smells like an orange. And the reason it looks and feels and smells like an orange is because it's a orange. There you go. Philosophy's not so hard. Boom. Here's Jesus then. Being in nature God. Looks like, walks like, talks like, behaves like, feels like God. How Jesus looks and acts and behaves is how God looks and acts and behaves. Jesus and God, same. But although Jesus is in very nature God, look at how the sentence develops. He does not consider equality with God something to be, and then the key word, grasped. Listen carefully. This is the example we are to follow. The word grasped in ancient literature means to use something for your own benefit or to behave for your own benefit. For example, Plutarch, the ancient writer, writing about Alexander the Great, says of him that his conquest of Persia was not a grasping. By which he meant the reason Alexander conquered Persia was not for anything that he could get out of it. It wasn't for his own benefit. It was because he wanted to spread Greek ideas and Greek culture to the pagan Persians. Something like that. You understand, grasping is to all be about you. It's to make the dramas of your life and what's going on in your family and what's going on around you. Everything has to be about you. That's grasping. All the thoughts in your head, it all comes back to you, and you. Grasping. Jesus, being in nature God, does not understand his nature as being about him. There is no grasping with Jesus. In other words, said more simply, Jesus understood himself as a giver and never a getter. When Jesus thought about what was going on in his day, it was always about them and never about him. This point is borne out in verse 7. Jesus, here it is, he made himself a nothing. The actual phrase that Paul uses here means he emptied himself out. I guess that's a phrase he borrows from philosophy again. What it means is, how can I explain it? I'm pretending I don't know how to explain it. I do. It means something like if you take a glass of water in the early summer and you go into your greenhouse where you're growing tomatoes and you empty the water into the tomatoes, the water stays water. It doesn't lose its place in the hydroponic cycle. It stays water. Only in emptying out, it becomes for the benefit of the tomatoes. Do you understand? That's not a very good example. All right, let's go back to your Italian grandmother again, okay? Or your grandmother. She didn't care. She didn't care if she had anything. And what little she had, she gave to you. She'd go without so you could have. She'd spend her whole day preparing something for you to eat. She'd spend the last wee bit of her pension so you could have a gift for your birthday or for Christmas. Did you know the kind of person? Gave everything. Literally poured out the hours of her day and the pennies in her pocket, all for you. This is the meaning of the phrase, he emptied himself, in this verse. He gave it all for you. Taking the very nature of a servant. I explained the meaning of the word nature just a few minutes ago when we looked at the orange. So here's God. He has the nature of a servant. He behaves like one. He talks like one. He thinks like one. Because he is one. So those stories in the Bible where Jesus puts on an apron and washes the feet of his disciples, he's not faking it. That's just what he's like. He's all about you, never about him. Just a note, just so you know. It's fine in church talking this talk. Like being a servant and being nothing. And you're kind of okay with it in church. And it's kind of fine thinking, okay, I'm a Christian, I should serve people and I should think of myself as nothing. And it's okay thinking of yourself as nothing until people treat you like you're nothing. It's okay thinking Christianity is about being a servant until people start to treat you like you're a servant. Then the faith gets hard. It just does. So God, what else does it say? Do you know what? I think that last sentence I spoke was so brilliant, it would be a shame to add to it. There's the challenge this week. That's not just how Jesus feels for you, that's how you are to feel for others. To be nothing. To serve them. To spend yourself. on them. Not for what you get. Not for you or for your drama or whatever. Just somehow, some way, this week, do the Christian thing of being for someone else. It's the only example we've got. God bless you. Thank you for coming. See you next Sunday.